All right, so welcome back. Episode 14. Brad, am I in the photo?
Nope. Here you go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. We're working on some things here, but everyone, welcome back. Ryan Ripken Show. I think it's episode 14. Co-host, as always, is Brad Smith, the guy with the bigger head. And then next to me, actually, it's a pleasure. We finally got him on here, Brad.
Yeah.
Co-host that I do with Rip and Rock on Fox 45. Rock, how we doing?
Don't gas me up like that, but I appreciate it. Great to join you, Brad. Ryan, not so much, even though it is your show. Oh,
His name is on the show.
Yeah.
And for that matter, I can control and dictate what we do and what we say. So anyway, a lot to dive into. And actually, we have a guest coming up in the show who's aware of a lot of things in the area here, especially in the Maryland region. So we're going to dive into that in just one moment here. But before we do that, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a big week of football that we want to get into. We might touch a little bit just to start that, hey, it's the final week of the Orioles season. We're going to jump way more into what's going on, especially with the Baltimore Orioles in this final week. But a lot of craziness for this NFL season.
Yes, that is correct. What is not correct is your mic placement. I need you to not have it right in front of your mouth. It's going to drive me crazy.
Is mine okay, Brad?
Yes, yours is perfect.
Yeah.
Have yours. You're away from. What are you doing, bro?
Is that
have
better?
It face your face. There you go. Yeah, that's much better. You don't have to be right. You don't have to eat it.
I'm working on it. If you guys can see how this cord looks, it's a problem.
You're very uncomfortable right now. That's hilarious.
It's okay. Well, you know, Brad, we have a big week of football here. So
Hey, that's true. I love you, man. I'm just trying to help you out.
I appreciate it. Helping you. But guess what? Is this okay now? Can I move in? Oh, the ear mic's down, but we're not going to worry about it at this moment.
Complete chaos.
Because what we have actually coming on, and why don't we just move into it? We have someone that gets to cover the whole Maryland region.
Yes.
Is actually covering a lot of things down in the DC region, specifically Scott Abraham, ABC, but also, and he can tell you himself, but we can bring Scott in. Brad, are you ready to bring him in?
Let's do it.
Scott.
What's up, guys?
How are we
Thanks for
doing?
having me.
Thank you
Good,
for
man.
joining us. And for those that don't know, give your backstory to just the whole, what you do, what's going on, and your affiliation, obviously, with the Maryland region.
Yeah, so I've been at ABC 7 here in DC for 8 years. Before that, I was in Salisbury, Ocean City for another 8 years. So basically 16 years of my life have been in the great state of Maryland. I live in Frederick County now, but obviously down here in DC, we cover a lot of professional teams, college teams, University of Maryland, and all the pro teams here in DC. And I'm obviously keeping my eye on those Baltimore Orioles because there are a lot of Orioles fans in Prince George's County, Montgomery County, all in our viewing area. So obviously I'm just living my dream. I've been, wanting to be a sports anchor, all my life, growing up as a kid. And I've been living my dream for the last 20 plus years.
Hell yeah.
So, and just to give context for the 20 plus years, because the Nationals then officially haven't been 20 years. That was 2005, correct?
Yeah, when they came back to DC, they came from Montreal. Yeah.
Right. So in that case, then especially with the Orioles, it's got to be exciting because that was the team in this region that everyone's rooting for.
So, dude, I'll be honest. Like I love Camden. I love the Orioles. When I was in Salisbury, Ocean City, working at a CBS affiliate there, I went to several Orioles playoff games. I remember very vividly. I was at that Delman Young game when he cleared the bases. I've never heard a stadium so loud in my life. It was just, I can't wait for playoff baseball again at Camden Yards because it's so special.
Hey, Scott, did you ever get in the clubhouse when the Nats clinched?
Dude, I was every step of the way. I was there in Game 7 in Houston in the World Series. I was there for the wild card clincher against Milwaukee when the ball went between the legs. And yeah, it was an amazing ride to just see a team that was kind of snake bitten year after year in the playoffs, could not get over the hurdle. And they finally kind of exercised some demons winning that wild card game. Then they beat the Dodgers on the Howie Kendrick grand slam in extra innings. And then you beat St. Louis, and then the Houston World Series was something else because not a single home team won a game in that World Series. All games are won by the road team. So I've been very fortunate to cover a lot of great sporting events, from the Caps winning the Stanley Cup to the Nats winning the World Series, and I'm hoping maybe the Orioles can do it this year.
I think everyone would be happy with that in Baltimore. I'm glad you got to experience that. And the reason why I want to bring this up, Scott, because Rock went into the Orioles locker room.
I was jealous.
And
I was jealous too.
This. Yeah.
I mean, these are like, as a kid wanting to be in this business, guys, this is, you watch this stuff on SportsCenter growing up, and like you visualize maybe that could be you one day. And I bet you it was so special for Rocco because he'll remember that forever. I mean, there's nothing like interviewing a player and getting sprayed with champagne and beer. And it's just, I still have the clips from all the Nationals. I mean, I'm going to save that forever.
Do you still have the clothes? Did you keep those, or did you wash those?
Well, they were dry cleaned heavily.
That's the way to do it, man. Right?
I never went to bed after Game 7. I mean, the after party, and then I was live at 5 a.m. in Houston. So the game ended, I think 11 midnight. Got done doing work at like 2, 3. I just stayed up.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
we need more of that, and we need you to give Rocco a lesson. And it's really exciting here, and it's a opportunity to essentially be a part of something that's so unique. And we've talked about, you've been covering it for a while, but it's hard to get to a championship level. When we talked about DC struggles, I mean, obviously the Capitals had a championship, but in Baltimore, it's been 40 years since the Orioles have won, and they've been fortunate to have one team win 2 in the last roughly 20 years. But it's exciting. But that kind of transitions then in this case. A lot of things have changed in Washington, and specifically with the Commanders. And I know you have been on it from the get-go, on all of it. Just your first reaction. I know you've talked about it, but you being at the preseason and talking and seeing the atmosphere in that Ravens game, and they broke the streak. I know the streaks that not everyone cares too much about, but that was kind of the changing of a guard.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game, and obviously the Washington-Baltimore rivalry, it's a little bit there. The people from Baltimore don't really care from DC. DC don't really care about the people from Baltimore, especially the Nationals and the Orioles when it comes to that Masson dispute that's going on. I'm just waiting for the Orioles to clinch against the Nationals in the next couple of days, because that'll just add a little more spice to everything. But I digress. In terms of the Commanders and this Washington NFL franchise, they're never boring, guys. I'll just put it that way. There's always something to talk about. But it's a new energy, a new era with Josh Harris taking over as owner. Dan Snyder is gone. Fans are starting to come back into the stadium and support this team. It helps that they've gotten off to a fairly good start. It was a clunker against the Bills, but the Bills are arguably one of the top teams in the NFL. But it's good to kind of talk about positive stuff again, because there's always been this dark cloud looming over this franchise, whether it's the off-field transgressions and the poor play on the field. So there's hope and belief that this franchise is once again heading in the right direction, because this used to be the gold standard franchise. Look at all the Super Bowls and the big moments at those RFK days, and Joe Gibbs is the head coach, and the Hogs and the offensive line. Those days went long gone during the Dan Snyder era, and they're hoping to rekindle that over the coming years here with Josh Harris in charge.
Yeah. So, Scott, I wanted to ask, to that end, with everything that's been going on with, the then Redskins to the football team, which honestly, I feel like the football team was growing on me. Should go back to the football team. But nevertheless, Sam Howell's coming in and just really kind of has a lot of promise. The first 2 weeks were really great. I thought that the Commanders looked pretty solid. And then, the Bills figure out that they're still the Bills. Obviously, it was a tough game for Sam. He threw four interceptions. And now they have the Eagles that they have to contend with as well next week. It's going to be a bit of a tough stretch for them. But how do you feel about the Commanders so far this year, even though, it was a really, really hard loss yesterday?
Yeah, they're trying to figure out if Sam Howell is going to be the guy. It's his second year in the NFL. He just came off his 4th career NFL start. And I think there's more tape on Sam, and the blueprint is starting to come out on how to disguise, defenses against him and put pressure on him. The Washington offensive line is not great. Guys, he's been sacked 19 times in 3 games. That's the most in the NFL right now. Against the Bills, he was sacked 9 times. You can't win too many games, especially turning the football over. As you mentioned, he had 4 interceptions, and he's partnered and teamed up with new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, coming over from Kansas City, where he had a lot of success with the Chiefs. Obviously, he had Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Washington, they don't have those 2 type of players. So it's interesting to see how Eric Bieniemy evolves as a play caller, not having a Mahomes and Kelce. The jury's still out. It's still very early in the process in terms of how this duo is going to work. Early returns, a mixed bag, because the Bills game was awful. Denver and Arizona were pretty good. It's going to be interesting to see how he rebounds and bounces back from a very poor start against the Bills. You mentioned they got a big game on Sunday, an NFC East showdown with the Philadelphia Eagles. So wait and see approach. And I think the fact that the new ownership, there's a little bit more leeway and a little bit more leash because they want to evaluate everything. So I think Sam Howell is going to get every opportunity to see where he's at and grow and develop.
Hey, Scott, all eyes are obviously on the quarterback with any team. Like that's what everyone is going to hyper focus on, because the quarterback of the offense, the quarterback of the team, like that is a big name, and that is Sam Howell. But a guy I wanted to ask you about, a guy I covered at Alabama, Brian Robinson, his story is incredible, man. Yeah. Doing what he did at Alabama behind Najee Harris, behind Damian Harris, and to wait his turn, it was so cool to see. And then to get to the NFL, go to the Commanders, and then everything that happened last year, and now he's back on the field and just grinding it out. How high is this guy's motor, and what is his ceiling in the NFL? Because I really like his game a lot, and I think they can really rely heavily on the ground game with Brian Robinson as well, with how good and how talented he is and how hard he works each and every day. You see it firsthand.
Good kid, genuine kid. Enjoy talking to him in the locker room. And if your listeners and viewers don't know the backstory, he was shot last year during an attempted robbery in D.C., minding his own business, carjacked, and he was shot in the leg after a very strong training camp. Missed some time, came back, and still played very well for the Commanders. And I love his running style. He's physical. He's aggressive, running between the tackles. I think they don't give him the ball enough. I think I would love for them to stick to the run game a little bit more. He was averaging 7 yards a pop against the Buffalo Bills, and they just kind of let the game get away and got pass happy. He has the body and the makeup of a NFL running back. Now, we know NFL running backs, their shelf life not too long, but you know what? He's got all the tools, and he's a good kid, and he wants to compete, and he wants to make it at this level. So it's been great to see him, get past what happened last year. Because my goodness, I can't imagine. There's the physical part of that, right? But then the mental part of that, of recovering from that. And he's in a good space right now.
I think just to kind of wrap this in, it's got out of curiosity, we talked about, there's excitement, not necessarily that there's overall expectations for the squad, but right now sitting at 2-1, and you don't know what's going to happen. The NFL is a crazy environment. I'm not saying for the Commanders to be a contending team at the moment. Playoff team definitely seems possible. But then what would be a grade for you right now if you're going to get to the midway point for the Commanders? And again, we can look at seasonal goals, but they're 2-1. You get to the halfway point here. What is deemed success for the Washington Commanders? And you can even say it if it's off of a win-loss where they have games against the Bears, the Falcons, the Giants after this, which you can argue those are 3 games that they could very well win. So what would you want to see from this team, or what's a realistic expectation for them, which is already, as we've talked about, an extremely competitive NFC East?
A couple of ways to take that question, because how do you determine success for a franchise that has struggled year after year? Off the field, I think you determine success if this fan base remains engaged, if this fan base still supports this team and have sellouts at the home games, because there's been a lot of empty seats the last couple of years. In the first 2 home games have been sellouts. Granted, there was a lot of Bills fans, but still it's nice to see a packed house again at FedEx Field. So I think off the field success, Is this fan base still re-energized? When is this honeymoon period going to end? Let's see how long this continues of the fan base really supporting this franchise. In terms of the on-the-field product, I had the Commanders at about 8-9 before the season. I thought they would just miss the playoffs. They would have some growing pains. Sam Howell would have some growing pains. At the midseason point, if they're around the 500 mark, I think they got a shot to make the playoffs. As you know, in the NFC East, it's a war. It's a battle every game. Dallas is very good. Philly's very good. Don't underestimate the Giants. They got a really tough late season schedule. I believe they play San Francisco and Miami. Miami, they look like out of this world right now. So if they're around the 500 mark come, I'd say mid-November, they have a chance. Remember, they have a Thanksgiving Day game at Dallas as well. So the schedule gets tougher. I think Sam Howell's going to have his struggles and his ups and downs in the roller coaster, but that's just part of the process of being a second-year quarterback in the National Football League.
Yeah, let's not forget the Cowboys look a little bit easier to beat after this week than they did the 2 weeks before. So that's not a guaranteed loss either there. So love this. Ryan, anything else you got for Scott?
No, you know what? I'm going to bother Scott a lot more off air and in person moving forward. But Scott, I appreciate you taking a little bit of time tonight to talk. Hopefully for Baltimore fans, they get to celebrate things with the Orioles, but hopefully for everyone in the region, hey, Commanders, Ravens, they're not rivals. I know people might say it, maybe they are, but we're pulling for the same squads. So
yes, and I hope to see you guys in a couple of weeks at Camden Yards, because I will be there tag team with Rocco, because I just like to ride his coattails with his Orioles bandwagon, because I'm not missing an Orioles home playoff game. I'm sorry, Rocco. I'll be live next to you.
I'll be riding your coattails. I'll see you there, my man.
I love the Orioles. The Orioles.
Sir. Well, hey, all right, Scott, we appreciate you. You have a great rest of your night. We'll talk soon.
See you, Scott.
All right, guys. Take care. Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, man.
Alrighty.
Just an absolute professional, by the way.
He's a great guy.
That was awesome.
I like Scott. Can you? All right, two things.
I know you're about to say something.
Number one,
yeah, go ahead.
Move the mic away from your face because you're breathing into it. It's like the nose is coming down. Number two,
it's like it's his first.
Just take the earbuds out and put them under the front part, so you're not like so like.
Okay, why don't you, Brad? While I do this, Brad, can you explain to the listeners what we're going to be doing?
Direct the camera to Rocco.
Put it on me, and then we'll get you settled.
Just put the camera on Rocco.
I was trying to get you, but you were like,
Rocco,
you're like this. What?
Rocco, push 2.
Put 2. Sounds good.
There we go.
All right, come on, Ryan. All right, Brad, just me and you while Ryan gets situated.
Let's do it.
Ryan, love you, bud. Love you, bud. You know I do. You're good. You're a good kid.
He'll get it figured out. All right. So moving on. Listen, bro, I wanted to talk to you guys about this Dolphins game. Scott had brought it up just about how unbelievable this game was. But there was not just the Dolphins game, but there was several embarrassing games. And I think there was 3 in particular that really stood out to me. It was the Cowboys losing to the Arizona Cardinals. That was super embarrassing. Then you had obviously the Dolphins game. And there was what was the other one? The
Bills Commanders. Bills Commanders got out. Well, that one too, but the Bills Commanders and I'd say 4 then with the Chiefs and Bears. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, I'm gonna go with. So I wanted the 3 of us to pick out which ones we thought that was the most embarrassing. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins game. And this is the part that kind of grinded my gears a little bit. Mike McDaniel comes out. At the end of the game, they ask him why he didn't kick that field goal for the 73 points, basically to kind of like break the record that was set back in 1966. There was another record back in 1940, I think, but that was pre-merger. So post-merger, this would have been the most points scored ever in an NFL game.
Yeah.
And here's what Mike McDaniel had to say about it. I'll give you my thoughts on this after this video here real quick.
Yep.
I try to think through all of my decisions and hold them with the importance that they do have. It felt like chasing points and chasing a record. That's not what we came to the game to do. That doesn't have a bearing on the overall season outcome. And I just didn't. I saw it as. In that 10 times out of 10, you you can see kneel down in those situations because there was a attainable record that was cool, but the message that I thought it would send wasn't really in line with how I view things.
So that is commendable. Okay. Right. Like everything that he said was commendable and totally respectful. But if they had not already been up 70-20, right? Like the Dolphins were kicking their ass, 53 to 13 in the third quarter. And they just kept pushing their foot on the gas. Like they what's another 3 points at that point? The embarrassment has already happened for the Broncos. I just don't understand where Mike McDaniel was coming from. That just mind blowing to me. Is it not?
Would you like to go first? After you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I like to say, I laugh. You know what's crazy to me is that when we look at what just kind of happened or transpired in this game, the fact that the Dolphins ran for, the fact that Mostert had 4 touchdowns, they had 2 running backs, with Chane being the other guy, that actually dominated the game. If you just had those running backs alone, that wins you the game. And just for rushing yards' sake, they ran for over 300 yards. Like that to me is unbelievable. First off, and when you look at the scoring of the game, I feel you on this, Brad. What's interesting to me is that it was 56-13 after they scored to open up the quarter, and it was a little touch screen pass to the running back to score the touchdown. Right?
A-Chain.
Yes, A-Chain. Yep.
I think he changed his name on the phonetically thing. It's a chain or A-Chain.
A-Chain. Well, whatever it is, he's super fast and he had an unreal game.
Yeah.
And so it was 56-13. And then you decide to throw a 68-yard bomb to Robbie Chosen, formerly known as Robbie Anderson. So I'm with you. And then they did have another 67-yard TD run. So to what point, Brad, like you're saying, when do you stop? When do you actually – you could have called the game with 15 minutes to go. And if you're already that far,
mercy rule.
Yeah, I don't know. Rob, what was your thought?
Just on the game overall, what they did. First of all, Robbie Anderson, shout out to Temple University, Temple Zone.
Of course you have to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have to. I have to shout out the Temple guys that are in the NFL.
What you got, Brad?
Go ahead, Brad.
Let's just stay on the topic of this Mike McDaniel not breaking the record thing, because Ryan had brought up huge plays after the fact that the game was already over. We're not even close to being within reach, and it's like, well, now you have a chance to break a record, so why not fucking do it? Like that's my thing. It's like you're already there, just kick the field goal and be done with it. Like the embarrassments happened, the game was over. It was over a long time ago. So why your excuse was that you didn't want to run up the points and that it was in good sportsmanship or whatever the hell you want to call it. But you're well past that point. You might as well just break a record to say that you did it.
No, Brad, I agree with you. To go out in the history books as the team that did it and the team that not set the standard, but the team that broke that record and is forever in the history books until that next team breaks it. And who knows when that might be? That could be 50, 60, 70 years from now. That's something to kind of hold your hat on and be proud of, because that's big to be able to do that, and to put up that many points or to even get close is ridiculous as it is. And I'm wondering if they put up that many points if they didn't take their foot off the gas, because Sean Payton has been known to make comments. I mean, he made the comments about Nathaniel Hackett, which Aaron Rodgers didn't take too lightly.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people were very, very upset with those, but do you remember what Sean Payton said about Tua Tagovailoa back, I don't know how many years ago it was, but he made these comments back in 2020. It was a year ago. He goes, I think at some point we'll see 2 quarterbacks in Miami. They played well yesterday with Tua, but Teddy Bridgewater, who I've had before in New Orleans, he's an outstanding player. And I think that's one of the unique things about this year. I counted 8 teams where I believe we're going to see multiple quarterbacks play, not relative to injury, but just a controversy, if you will. In a day and age where we're keeping receipts, Deion Sanders, Colorado, Coach Prime, you think the Miami Dolphins might have kept the receipts on that one? I'm not sure, but it's just something to look at and keep an eye on. So 70 points is a lot, and to beat a team by 50, that's simply incredible in itself.
Well, the last thing with go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say, what's another 3 after that?
Yeah, I agree. Just do it. Just kick the field goal.
Real quick, the ironic part is that you just brought up to the whole the fact that Sean Payton also said, and that's why this conversation of what's worse for the weekend. Sean Payton said last year was one of the worst coaching performances he's seen from Hackett. Right, that was a conversation that we've talked about, and so what's happened here is Sean Payton gives up 70 points. and just to give the context of this, the Dolphins had 726 total yards of offense, 0 turnovers, and they forced 3 turnovers. And the fact of the matter that it was a 35-point game at the half, or it was 35 points put up for the Dolphins at half. That means they had to score another 35 in the second half. And we're talking about what's a more embarrassing storyline. That's up there, and we have other games. And now that we're just going to dive into this, because I think it's a good transition, because you made the good point, Brad. You go with me moving on to the next one?
Yeah.
Perfect. So my next one that I want to talk about disappointing for the weekend, it to me was still the Chicago Bears continuing to find different ways to disappoint their fan base.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was hoping maybe there would be a squeaky wheel or something would happen with, Justin Fields making his comments, and maybe they would change things. Maybe they would change the designed runs. No, didn't happen. And not only did it not happen, this game was uncompetitive from the start. It actually looked like they took a step back. And yes, we talked about it, Brad. We talked about it. The Chiefs were going to roll in this game. But the fact of the matter is that this game didn't even have a chance to have any type of debate, and you didn't see any step forward from the Bears. And I know people can say, well, Justin Fields isn't making plays, but you didn't change your offense to help. You kept running similar situations and then were put into 3rd and long. And then all of a sudden, whammy, you're down. And then you guys could not stop a cold, and let alone stop the best quarterback in the world, where the Chiefs literally did all that they wanted to do for the entirety of the game until they said, you know what, Patrick, you're done. Take it easy. And that was it. The only reason the Bears scored points is because Blaine Gabbert came in and turned the ball over twice.
Dude,
let's not forget that, they had to throw Travis Kelce a bone for for all the Swifties out there as well. That's the level of embarrassment it was for the Bears yesterday, for sure.
Did you not know, like, when I saw Taylor Swift in the stand, like first of all, when Adam Schefter put out that report, I texted my friends. I was like, if you guys are betting people, you need to lock in Travis Kelce anytime touchdown right now, because it's going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind it happens. It's the perfect script, and it would be the perfect cherry on top to Travis Kelce's day if he caught a touchdown pass. And what did he do? He went out there and caught a touchdown pass. And it's like Hollywood couldn't have scripted that moment right there any better, because Taylor Swift's in the stands or in the suite next to his mom, Donna Kelce, screaming, "Let's effing go," this and that. It was chest bumping. The guy next to her, like, that was awesome stuff to see. So, love it or hate it, if you're a Swiftie or not, whatever. Like, I thought it was a really cool moment for football. I know there are a lot of people out there that are very upset with the amount of posts on Instagram about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, but listen, it is what it is. It moves the needle. It moved the needle in football for not only the football world, but the outside world. People that might not necessarily watch football week in and week out, they were tuned into that game. I'm telling you that.
Hey, Brad, can I ask you a question with this?
What's
because this involves the Swift. As soon as Kelce caught that touchdown pass, I think instead of doing the celebration on Kelce, it was immediately to the box.
Yeah. It was.
They had to have had, like, the camera, the director, whoever was directing that broadcast did a hell of a job, because there was a camera on her at all times. I guarantee you that. It was camera 2 or camera 3 or camera 4. It's like, take camera 4 on Taylor Swift celebration. And they knew they had to have either have gotten a tip, or they knew once Schefter put it out, like, all right, we're setting this up. We're going to have the camera pointed at the suite right there, the Kelce suite, and we're going to go from there. So that was really cool to see. I mean, Travis Kelce shot a shot and it landed, and I can respect that, because he said, like, listen, I watched you at Arrowhead. Now you got to watch me come rock out Arrowhead. And she did. And that's cool to see.
Is it also not a coincidence that he caught for 69 yards yesterday? Pause.
I'm going to set this one out, Brad.
All right. So, listen,
to get fired from my job.
It wasn't just fired from your job. Anyways, it wasn't just the 69 yards. He did have 7 catches for 69 yards. And to your point, Travis Kelce gained 300,000 plus social media followers, a 400% increase in merchandise sales. the Taylor Swift effect has come in full force over at Arrowhead, and it has been absolutely insane.
Look at this stash.
I cannot wait for. I mean, listen. Maybe I should back up those words a little bit. But if this doesn't work out, I'll just put it that way. If it doesn't work out, I cannot wait for the album that comes out afterwards.
Do we have a Rip? Do you have like a thought on what the title of the album or the song about Travis Kelce might be? When or if they do break up? I mean, hopefully it's happily ever after, but if it happens, he's getting a song written about him. What's it going to be?
Listen, Taylor Swift has a history. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I will say this for a second here. I looked at it as a negative for a while, but is it a positive if you get a song written after you?
I mean, it's all publicity is good publicity, right? Like it's like, isn't that the thing?
So, and having said that, let's talk about football here for a second. Is it good publicity that the Bears are an absolute dumpster fire? And
no,
and
that's
and like I hate this, but I'll go back to football here because we're talking about it. Justin Fields was 11 for 22, 99 yards. The Bears had 10 points that came really all in garbage time. They scored 10 points in overtime after being down 41-0. So, yes, we're talking football. Taylor Swift is now the Chiefs are America's team, but for Chicago,
Cowboys fans,
is there any other hope for Chicago right now, or is this the overreaction? Or maybe hear me out. I don't have any confidence that the Bears, or I do have confidence. To me, the Bears are going to wind up with the number 1 overall pick. They look like the team with the most dysfunction and with the most unrealistic, I guess, idea of what they actually are trying to accomplish this season.
Well, they could trade that number 1 pick away again. Let's not forget about that. But yes, what an absolute dumpster fire they are. They have now lost 12 in a row. If you go back to last year, absolutely crazy from the Bears. Sorry, Bears fans, just not going to be your year. What's crazy? It's like there was MVP talk from Justin Fields and the Justin Fields camp going into this season. And it's just like, literally quarter 1 of the season, it all got deflated. So really a shame there. So we covered the Dolphins. We covered the Chiefs. Ryan, you haven't given your most embarrassing game of the weekend.
Well, no, I talked about the Bears, but the other one I know what we're talking about. How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, the Cowboys. So, lots of hype surrounded around the Cowboys, right? They scored 70 points to 10 in their first 2 weeks. And then they go to Arizona and lay an egg. Dak Prescott continues to be Dak Prescott, in my opinion. I have talked about this since before the season started, that it was a prove it to me type of situation. I never really understood the Dak hype for his entire career. Won over all of the stats as to why I thought so. 14 interceptions last year. And he threw another interception this time around in a very crucial part of the game. Take a look at this. Right with 3 minutes to go, throws an interception right in the end of the game. And so it was really a tough spot for all Cowboys fans. But my God, Ryan at the helm is just not working out.
I was like, what just happened?
I was trying to click.
It was like the circle of death, and he just looks at me and smiles.
It was such a
I was like, what's going on, you menace? What are we doing here?
This is why, everyone. This is why Ryan needs a tutorial and a manual, but we're working on our skills.
So Brad's the producer.
Yeah, and we're working on this together. But hey, I know you were talking especially about the Dak Prescott situation. You've been against as far as saying you believe that the Dak hype is too much. And we talked about this. It has nothing to do with Dak as a person, great guy. But the Cowboys themselves, a lot of pressure's on him because games like this are games where you feel that you need to come through and try to win the game.
Well, yeah, let me set the tone for this on the Dak Prescott situation. So first off, here is a game-winning situation where Dak could have tossed it in the end zone and he throws a pick, 3 minutes to go, right? So like obviously really tough, but instead of really taking, responsibility for himself and saying and just owning it, one quarterback so far that had a really bad game and put everything on him, just to humble himself down so far that I've seen this season, has been Josh Allen. That game against the Jets, he placed all the blame on him and was like, listen, I got to be better. Yes, the team needs to be better, but I got to be better first. That's your leader. And then you have Dak that comes out and says something to the effect of, well, the media got what they wanted. And so, and I actually wanted to share this tweet with you guys. This is a direct quote from Dak himself, talking about this. He says that, this is from Clarence Hill Jr. says, I asked Dak Prescott on Sunday's loss was a wake-up call for the high-flying Cowboys, and Dak's response was just classic Dak. It's just irritating. He says, y'all put us on top of the world. We know who we are, and in that same sense, I'm sure the media got what they wanted. There has only been one undefeated team in this league ever. Yeah, it sucks. It's humbling, but to say it's a wake-up call, we knew we had a lot of adversity, and we just didn't get it done. I think it goes back to myself. The offense and the red zone, we get better right there. We win this game. We have to fix that, period. The Cowboys are 27th in the league in the red zone, mind you, leading up to this. And yeah, they were without Trayvon Diggs, right? He's out for the season. Really tough stuff
injury.
there.
Very tough injury.
But listen, if you didn't want to be in the limelight, you don't play for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry. Here's what happened before the game. This is Jerry Jones about ready to sign a baby. This is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys in the media all of the time. He's signing a baby at the Arizona game.
Did he actually sign the baby?
Oh yeah. What? Yep. There he is.
I thought you were saying like he signed the baby on the forehead or something.
No.
All right, he signed the jersey. That's pretty
okay, but still, this is what I'm talking about. This is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys who's in the media every week.
Yep.
And so like this is the expectation, Dak Prescott. Like, sorry, but that is the world you live in, and it's Jerry's.
No, I completely agree. But for the Cowboys, Brad and Rip, I still don't think this. I mean, it's 3 weeks into the season, and much like the Ravens lost to the Colts, I don't think this loss defines them as a team. I don't think it defines them going forward. I don't think it's the same old Dallas Cowboys yet. If they lose in the first round of the playoffs, yeah, it's the same old Dallas Cowboys once again. But I think right now there's a whole lot of season left. I think the Cowboys defensively are still one of the scariest teams in the league. I think Dak Prescott, if he rebounds next week, gets it together, goes on a little bit of a run, the Cowboys are looking solid. They have a shot at the NFC East. I still think it's the Eagles' division to lose because the defending NFC champs, they went to the Super Bowl last season. But I think the Cowboys are going to put up as much of a fight as anybody in this league in the NFC for sure.
Well, here's a quick thought though, by the way, is we're talking about Dak, for instance, but the Cowboys lost Trayvon Diggs and all of that, transpired, right? Cowboys still gave up 400 yards of total offense. You know what I mean? Like that to Josh Dobbs and James Conner. James Conner's a great running back, but I'm saying Josh Dobbs was traded over to be kind of this helping piece at quarterback. He goes out there and puts together drive after drive. And I'll tell you what, I think the Cardinals are better than people think. They are actually competing. And I'm not saying, but everyone thought they were going to be the dumpster fire of the NFL. Right now, it's been it's been the Chicago Bears, but it's been really impressive to see, especially now. They should have beat the Giants. They had a chance to beat the Commanders, and then you beat Dallas, who everyone was ready to crown as the best team in the NFC. But then you got to go hold your horses, because there are teams like this that you got to be careful of. But to your point, though, Brad, what we talked about, this is a game the Cowboys needed to win, especially if you're going to try to win the division. You're going to have to, like, we're going to get into the Ravens and all that. You can correct this, but if you're going against the Eagles and it comes down where you lose the division because this is a game that you never could get a hold of, that's something you're going to have to look in the mirror on.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I get animated. It's Overreaction Monday, but at the end of the day, like, this was the hype train that the Cowboys wanted to be on. And, just to kind of the first thing that comes out of your mouth is the media, it's just, I don't know, just not something that you would expect a leader of a team to come out and say, after you just threw a game ending interception, just take the ownership on it.
Yeah, and one thing I want to touch on real quickly, because we're going through this and try to be understanding. The Cowboys ran the ball extremely well, and that's something that they're going to continue to lean on. And
they always have,
And so with that, when you look at the numbers that they have and the players that they have, you would think that scoring points should never be a problem with this offense. And I think that's where it comes back to. And you're right. You're going to have off games. Like we've talked about this. You're going to have off games. But at the end of the day, when you look at this, if I told you the Cowboys had 416 total yards, only one turnover, would you have told me they scored 16 points, including 6 in the second half?
No shot.
No shot,
right?
And that's the problem. Like that's what I mentioned earlier. They're 27th in the league in the red zone. Like they got to figure out how to punch that ball in. You're not going to win games kicking field goals.
Well, so I think it's safe to say all 3 of those games, a lot of disappointment. Another game filled with disappointment real quick. I think safe to say, and this is one where we are up here right now, Ravens Colts.
Yeah.
And it felt like everything that could have possibly gone wrong for the Ravens to lose this game happened. And Rock, you actually got to be right front and center in there. You were there.
Yeah, no, I was. First of all, before we dive into the ins and outs of the game, I just want to ask you guys, because I got not knocked on Twitter for it, but I called them the Colts. And I know everything that happened with the Colts when they were here in Baltimore, but I said like Ravens versus Colts, or like Ravens score blank, Colts score blank. And someone didn't come at me on Twitter. They were just basically like, we call them Indy, don't call them the Colts. Does everyone here in Baltimore think that way? Do you think that the majority of people in Baltimore think that way? Or is it like, all right, it's what happened. We have the Ravens now. We are the Baltimore Ravens. That's our team. Because I know there are still Baltimore Colts fans here, or fans of that team from when they were there. And they're still very sour. I completely understand why when the team left.
Brad?
That is not something that I've heard just as a Marylander my whole entire life. I actually have not. But there was who is the host of NFL on Fox? What's his name? African-American guy who's the host on Fox. I cannot remember his name.
Kurt Menefee?
Yes.
Yeah.
He called live on air, called them the Baltimore Colts.
Well, okay. So I'll say this.
Which is way more offensive than just calling them the Colts, by the way.
Right.
Rocco.
But I will say this. I have heard a lot of disgust with Indy leaving, but I don't think it's sometimes as deep rooted now just because time passes. But you know what also helps time pass is when the team that you have come in wins a couple Super Bowls. And actually that team in Baltimore has won more Super Bowls than the Indianapolis Colts since they went to Indy. I believe the only one that they've won since they left Indy, maybe you can fact check me, but I know since the Ravens came to Baltimore, the Ravens have won more Super Bowls than the Indianapolis Colts. So that helps.
That's correct.
And so in Baltimore, though, when we think about this, Rock, I think Cleveland has the most disdain for a team because the Ravens left Cleveland to become the Ravens in Baltimore.
Yeah.
And the Ravens, they feel like those Super Bowls should be theirs. And that's
but you know what? The Ravens didn't leave in the middle of the night and lie to everybody about it.
Hey,
I was just looking at Rick's comment right
Rick
there.
Made it right here. Whammy. My generation is still pretty bitter, but I have to let it go. So it is deep rooted. So you are talking about it.
There are fans out there that still don't want to hear the word Colts. They just want to hear Indianapolis versus the Ravens, or Baltimore versus Indianapolis. And that's fair. But I'm going to call them the Colts because it's when I'm talking about a team, I'm going to name them by their mascot half the time. I'm not going to say Baltimore over and over again because we're in Baltimore, so they're going to be called the Ravens. I'm not going to call them Indianapolis because, number one, that's like 3 or 4 syllables. Colts is just easy to say. So that's just how it is. But getting into the game, sorry to get off topic. I just had to ask you guys that because I thought that was like a good talking point, especially for this city, people tuning in. So with the game, it was that first drive, the Ravens went out and they played Raven football. And Lamar Jackson played the way Lamar Jackson is capable of playing. And they went down the field. They drove, I think, 80-plus yards, 10 or 12 plays, and punched the Colts in the mouth. And Lamar was 5 for 5 on that drive. He had 26 yards rushing, 4 carries, I think, for 26 yards and a touchdown. And that is the way that Ravens football and the Ravens offense should look. Now, I'll say this. You're taking baby steps right now. And that's okay because this offense, you got to think, a lot of these starters didn't play in the none of the starters really played in the preseason at all. So when you're getting accustomed to a new offense, a new system, and I talk about this in everyday life, when you get thrust into a new system in your job, in anything, it's going to take some time to getting used to. I mean, for me, when I was working at, I'm still working at WBFF, Fox 45, when we had to learn new systems, I wasn't used to iNews, which is the way we produce our shows, or Avid, the way we edit our shows. But after 2-3 weeks, I got it down. It took me almost a month, and it took some learning. With the Ravens offense, I'm not comparing myself to a professional football player, but I think people can compare in everyday life to what the Ravens are doing right now. It's going to take some time to getting used to. And then when you add on the injuries week after week after week, and that injury list, it looks like a CVS receipt right now. It really does. And I've said that before, but it's starting to get long, and there's not really anything the Ravens can do about that. These are injuries that are happening in games, and it's just very unfortunate. But it's going to take some time to getting used to and accustomed to. And I think when the Ravens finally get it down, it is going to really just, I don't know, like the way Lamar plays football, it is going to really complement his game and the way he plays, because 2 rushing touchdowns. I know he didn't have any passing touchdowns this past week, but he looked really good on the ground with those design run plays. It looked like so.
Well, you bringing up design runs, actually, Ryan Clark then came out and thought, and we have a video here that Brad's going to tee up with. Ryan Clark doesn't think there's that much of a difference between the Greg Roman offense and Todd Monken so far. So we want you guys to listen here to see what we're talking about, and then we're going to address again.
It's about how do you find an innovative way to help Lamar Jackson increase who he is as a passer, to help the Baltimore Ravens be able to threaten the deep part of the field, Stephen A. And they aren't doing that at all. Now, what was it supposed to be? It was supposed to be because now you have Zay Flowers, because now you have Odell Beckham Jr., you have a healthy Rashad Bateman, and they were supposed to be able to win one-on-ones. Well, everybody knows in order to win the one-on-ones, you got to create those for your player. You got to put the people in the right position. They were supposed to spread it out. They were supposed to give you all this space so Lamar Jackson could operate. You know what I saw in the red zone yesterday? I saw 2 called quarterback runs for Lamar Jackson. And guess what they were? They were extremely successful. You know what else I've seen since 2019, Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp, in the red zone? I've seen called runs for Lamar Jackson that were extremely successful. We aren't seeing anything different. And I actually think whatever the simple changes are that they're trying to make to the passing game is holding this offense back. It's putting this offense in a place where now Lamar Jackson is thinking, where now the receivers' route combinations aren't as crisp. They need to simplify it. And I don't want people to take this wrong, like Lamar can't handle it. There seems like there's too much going on. Like we're trying to take too big of a step instead of finding out what does this group of individuals do well, and let's do that. There is no consistency to who the Baltimore Ravens were, and at least with Greg Roman, though it was elementary, though we hated the passing game, they were consistent. And they had something they were good at, and they did it over and over again. I don't know who this Ravens team is, and they don't have an offensive identity yet, and that's the thing that scares me more than anything.
So right there, we heard it, and we're going to dive into this in a second.
Yeah.
And so what Brad, we've talked about even before the show, I mean, look, people are going to be quick to criticize after 3 games. And you can talk about it. I know you probably saw a lot of injuries went down for the Ravens. We talked about injuries before. Rashad Bateman got hurt. No Gus Edwards, or Gus Edwards concussion, knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
You're down to then Melvin Gordon being your main
Hill.
guy. No Justice Hill.
Yeah.
No Odell Beckham Jr. It's on a wet, rainy day. And I think that the Ravens deserve a little bit of a, hey, different circumstances, really wet game. And I don't think that that's been really discussed. I understand it's money. By the way, that was on First Take on ESPN for those that were wondering. But so, Rock, I mean, you were there. You saw the conditions. They weren't by any means pleasant or easy to play in.
They weren't ideal. And I'm not one to make excuses for the Ravens or sit here and sugarcoat anything. But I'll say this. Ball security has been an issue the first 3 weeks for Lamar Jackson. And I think he knows that. And I think he's going to try to get better and be more conscious of that as the weeks go on. I'm not going to sit here and bash him and say, oh, yeah, Lamar stinks at holding on to the ball, because I just don't feel like that's the case. I've seen him run in the open field and make big plays with his legs when the ball is just like out like this. And he is crazy at the things he can do. Lamar is one of the most dynamic and versatile players in the NFL. So, but ball security has been an issue. He's fumbled in each of the 3 games, but he didn't technically fumble in the Bengals game because that was negated by a penalty, but he did cough up the ball. So 3 games will say that he has fumbled, whether he's gotten credited for a fumble or not. And he fumbled multiple times in this game. I'll say this about the Ravens, though. So Lamar needs to do a better job of holding onto the ball, plain and simple. And I feel like he knows that. And that's something that he's going to carry with him as the season goes on. He's going to try to, but he even kind of fired back at someone on Twitter. He was like, not fired back, but he's like, I was getting hit as I threw on the one. The other one, that's different. That's on him. It is what it is. But for this offense, being down Odell Beckham Jr., who you're paying $15 million, $18 million, or $15 million guaranteed, $18 million potentially with incentives. You're down J.K. Dobbins. You are down 2 offensive linemen in Tyler Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley. And John Harbaugh doesn't want to make excuses, and he said he doesn't want to make excuses, but it is what it is right now. And the fact of the matter is the Ravens are dealing with injuries. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. It's something that you can't control, but it's unfortunate that this team isn't healthy right now and can't stay healthy, because when you have Ronnie Stanley, a former all-pro left tackle, when you have Tyler Linderbaum, who's expected to be a absolute beast in his second season, he was great his rookie year. That's tough on your offensive line. So I think that Lamar, if they can draw up a game plan, much like the one in Cincinnati in week 2, where Lamar looked very comfortable in the pocket, he looked great throwing the ball. That deep pass to Zay Flowers, while Zay Flowers made a great play in double coverage, I believe, that was an absolute dime from the starting quarterback, former unanimous MVP. I think the Ravens can be successful. We're 3 weeks into a new offense for the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to take some time to getting used to. Now, if we're week 10 and they're struggling, fine. 3 weeks in. Let's give it to like week 5, 6, 7 to kind of judge how this Ravens offense is going to look going forward, because I'm not sold on what Ryan Clark said. I think he does a great job. I think he does phenomenal breaking down plays, and especially with the Baltimore Ravens. But let's pump the brakes a little bit going forward. Let Lamar, let Todd Monken, let John Harbaugh, and let the rest of the offense kind of do their thing as we go forward. It was a tough loss, though. I get why fans have kind of a sour taste in their mouth right now.
Yeah, I mean, that game. And to tee this up for you, Brad, you talked about this when we did our game picks last week. I mean, the Colts, sneaky. We weren't sure what they're going to be. I mean, they haven't given up more than 21 points this season.
Right.
So in my mind, you're right. For all the points that we just brought up here, it's early. You don't know what's going on. Also, for me, I'm looking at it, I would love to see some more deep shots, right? Of course, we want to see that.
Yeah,
we want to see that, right?
Yep.
But I think what was more in this case was your circumstances. The Colts have played the Ravens tough over the last few years. And also when you have pieces down, that's going to make it a little bit more challenging, but you can't discredit the Ravens just went on the road, beat the Bengals where Lamar was very efficient, throwing the football, made the right reads, made the beautiful throw to Zay Flowers, made that incredible throw to Nelson Aguilar in the end zone as well.
Oh, yeah.
Can't discredit that. I think that's a big reason why they came out of Cincy with the victory. So just wanted to point that out. Brad, you have any other closing remarks? I know you looking at this was something that was on your mind when Ryan Clark spoke.
Yeah. So here's what I'll say, looking at what I feel is happening is that Ryan Clark is talking about this last game, and maybe he's not, but we go back and look at the Bengals game, for example. I mean, the amount of receivers that Lamar spread the ball around to is pretty incredible. The top 4 receivers in that game were wide receivers. That's not something we're actually used to seeing. It's last year it was we saw some of Rashad Bateman when he was healthy and Mark Andrews. And then it was, Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. Now he's spreading the ball around. And the game against the Bengals, we saw Nelson Aguilar with 5 receptions. He actually led the game in receptions and yards with 63 yards, averaging 12.6 yards per catch. Zay Flowers had 4 with 62 yards. Mark Andrews was Mark Andrews with 45 yards and a touchdown. But like my point is that some of the plays that we saw during that Bengals game, I think is going to be more reflective of what we're going to see moving forward. But when we get to the end of the season, we're going to be like, yep, that Bengals game is what the offense truly is. And once they get fully gelled, I think it just comes down to chemistry. And you got to remember, Lamar now has so many new pieces to this offense that have, as soon as he gets used to them, they get taken away, right? And he has a new offensive coordinator. So I think, to Rocco's point, I think it's still going to take some time. We're in week 3. This almost feels like it's the 3rd preseason game. We talked about this in the beginning of the season, that Lamar didn't take one snap during preseason. So still just getting used to things in a real-time game situation. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks that it came down to some pretty bad calls on the refs as well. But hey, if the Ravens hadn't put themselves in that situation, we wouldn't be having this conversation either.
And I want to touch on real quickly, because Rock and I, all of us, we talked about this. I mean, I think it's fair to say, no matter what's happening, guess who's involved in this offense? Zay Flowers.
Yep.
Zay Flowers now has 2 games over 8 catches. And Rock, you got to see him in person again, and it looks like that's staying the same. Everything we saw in Ravens training camp is coming true. And I think we haven't seen that full evolution of what he could be, but clearly he has become the guy.
Yeah, he has. He led the team again in receptions, 8 catches for 48 yards. And that's not, those aren't eye-popping numbers if you're looking at it. But for Zay Flowers being a rookie, as heavily involved as he is in this offense, that is big for a rookie and for a guy that was the Ravens' first-round picks, because they've struggled to draft wide receivers in the past. Rashad Bateman, he's on the team right now. He was a first-rounder, and right now he's dealing with a hamstring injury. But Rashad Bateman, healthy. I think Rashad Bateman could be a huge part of the offense. But right now, because everyone thought Rashad Bateman was going to be the guy this season, I still think he can help this offense in so many ways and be huge for the Ravens going forward. But I think right now in the offense, wide receiver wise, Zay Flowers is the guy, not Odell Beckham Jr., not Rashad Bateman, not Nelson Aguilar. I think it's Zay Flowers, because Lamar is going to rely on a shifty guy that can pick up yards after the catch like Zay Flowers can. And that's what we're seeing right now. But when Bateman comes back, I don't know if he's going to miss the next game with a hamstring injury. Is tough, but he's dealing with a hamstring issue. That was the deal in Sunday's game. So Bateman comes back healthy. I think he can continue to contribute. He hasn't really done much through 3 games, but I think once Rashad Bateman gets into a rhythm, this is a guy that missed the last several games of the season last year. It could be Rashad Bateman's world as well. But Zay Flowers, I mean, this is going to be the guy all season long. I'm telling you what we saw in training camp, what we saw in OTAs, what we saw in preseason, Zay Flowers is the guy's Ravens fans. You got a good one.
Rocco,
Zay.
What's the latest on OBJ? When are we going to see him back on the field?
So I'm not sure. With OBJ, he was dealing with an ankle issue, and the Ravens are very just tight to their chest, like very tight knit about how they. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but
close
about close to the vest, tight to the chest, close to the vest. That's what I wanted to say.
Was it a chest? Was it a chest day for you today? Was that why you're talking about it?
It was actually chest and arms day. Yeah.
There you go.
Sure.
Did you just size me up?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, continue.
How about you do some push-ups there, guy?
Wow. Shots fired. Back to OBJ. Thank you.
OBJ, you don't, with an ankle injury, you really don't know like when the guy's gonna. You hope it's next week. You hope it's maybe if he misses next game, he comes back the week after against this, because it goes Browns on the road, Steelers on the road, and then you go to London. So you're hoping he's back before that, but I really don't know right now. Truly, I would say, as John Harbaugh says, refer to the injury report on that one.
Speaking like a true coach. Well, you know what? Hey, what we're finding out in the NFL is that it's crazy. It's wild. We don't know what to expect. And for some of the teams that were expected to win this week, they didn't. But how about teams where they were still trying to figure it out, and all of a sudden they have tremendous comebacks? This is going to be a positive. And Brad, you know where I'm going with this. Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers come storming back against the New Orleans Saints to shock them and give Jordan Love his biggest victory so far as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, so I actually have some footage here from the last quarter. Here's all, as we're talking about this, here's we'll let some of the last quarter play. Sorry, Saints fans, that you have to relive this, but it is what it is. These are all the plays that Jordan Love made in the last quarter when he was down 17-0 with 12.5 minutes to go and came back and won this game. And there was a lot of talk, especially we got a lot of chatter from even Falcons fans when we talked about look, Jordan Love has played an incredible season so far and had one bad quarter. And I would argue that was on the defense in that Falcons game. But up to this point, there has been nothing that has convinced me that Jordan Love isn't their franchise guy and will be for years and years to come. And week 1, I had said in my overreaction, my hear me out, was that the Green Bay Packers were going to win this division. And I still believe that after 3 weeks in.
And I mean, rightfully so, right? I mean, Jordan Love, the Lions are going to be there. I think it's fair to say, and the Vikings are going to play tough, and it's going to have all these moments. But so what we're seeing though is he making reads? Is he growing as a passer, as a player, and is that leadership starting to show? Because down 17-0 at home, and we talked about this last week, Brad. This was the toughest defense that they faced. The Saints defense, that unit is tough. And then you fall into the hole, and instead of, rolling over, you keep battling. And that's something that Aaron Rodgers had done for all those years in Green Bay. And for you to find a way down the stretch to pull your team out into victory is truly incredible. And again, I mean, it's realistic now that the Packers fans, if you had some doubts, well, look, they still did this. And again, guess who wasn't playing? Aaron Jones and Christian Watson, their top 2 weapons on offense, were not on the field, and they still found a way to win the game. And it did show early, but Jordan Love looked like he was in control. And I'm not saying it wasn't pretty throughout the game. Obviously, you can look at his numbers and the completion percentage is down. But
here's what I'll say to that, Ryan.
Yes.
Here's what I'll say to that. As we're watching this, there were so many catchable balls in this sequence in the fourth quarter that were dropped. So even with the incompletions, I would say there wasn't many that were on Jordan Love. There's quite a few catchable passes that just weren't caught.
Yeah, well, and you know what, and that's a part of it, but the resiliency to keep fighting, and I think that's what we're continuing to see. But so for Jordan Love, because there's a lot of the highlights going on. There's the rushing touchdown there. You're seeing his athleticism. I mean, guy can play. And I think this was something for the Packers. These are the moments we talked about in baseball with the Orioles and any athlete. If you've been in it, how do you get experience and how do you know when you get put in tough moments?
Yep.
Last week, they had a tough moment where they let a lead slip away and you lost the game. And this one, you're down. Can you fight your way back? Can you find a way? And when you're back in that same scenario, can you prove that you can find a way to win the game? And in this case, they did. Rock, you got something?
No, yeah, I think it was really cool to see. This game was awesome to see Jordan Love lead the comeback and lead the charge because it's especially at Lambeau, Packers fans were loving that. But the week before, seeing what Aaron Rodgers said to Jordan Love, I don't know if you guys saw it, but he said on the Pat McAfee show, he texted Jordan Love after that win over the Bears, and he said, congrats on keeping the ownership in place, or thanks for keeping the ownership in place. Because Aaron Rodgers' thing, for those of you out there that don't follow the Green Bay Packers, he would always say, I own you. Or he said it the one game against the Bears, it was like, I own you. I own you. And Aaron Rodgers has always carried that. And it's been cool. Like that kind of talk, that kind of hype, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. Like, I mean, he carries himself that way. So to see him supporting Jordan Love, I think that meant a lot to Jordan Love, a guy who sat behind him for the last 2 seasons, was drafted in 2020 in the first round, a guy that many thought could replace Aaron Rodgers right then and there. It was a questionable move by the Packers at the time, but now it looks like it's panning out for Green Bay, and they have their guy, and I feel like fans truly believe that this could be their franchise quarterback going forward. And to see that comeback right there, I mean, that's got to put a smile on the faces of Green Bay fans for sure.
Let me ask you this, Rocco. I asked Ryan this last time around. Who was the last Bears quarterback to sweep the Packers?
How long ago are we talking, or is that going to give it away?
1991.
And
91.
How about this? This is going to be hard. This is going to be hard for him to get here. So how about we add this part in? There's a relation.
I'm not looking it up. I'm looking up.
There's a relation to someone involved with the Baltimore Ravens right now.
There is
Someone
yes.
involved with the Baltimore Ravens.
Who's been involved with the Baltimore Ravens?
Who was a Raven?
2008.
Who
Was
was a
it-
Raven?
And he was a Raven.
Was it John? I mean, was it Jim Harbaugh?
Jim
Bingo.
Harbaugh.
No way.
Jim Harbaugh was
Jim
the last pack.
Harbaugh.
So here's the crazy part. Okay, Jim Harbaugh was the last Bears quarterback to sweep the Packers.
No way.
1992, Brett Favre comes into the league, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, you go
Whammy.
from there exactly.
Because then you have
Whammy is
Rodgers,
right.
and now Jordan Love's carrying that torch now too.
Yeah.
So it's just absolutely insane.
about
What an
that?
incredible franchise.
yeah, yeah.
For the last 3 generations of
I
quarterbacks.
really would love to get out to Lambeau to see a game. I mean, it
That's
looks
a bucket
incredible,
list
that
item for me,
atmosphere.
too.
And I want to go, guys. I feel like you got to go during a game where it's cold and
Oh,
it's
gotta be
snowy.
frigid.
It's
Yeah.
got to be like if it's like snowstorms in the area. That is the game at Lambeau that I want to go to. I don't want to
100%.
go when the sun's out. I don't want to go when it's all right. It's cold a little bit. I want to go when it's frigid. I want to go when it's snowing. I want to go when it's at its worst. But for Lambeau, I feel like the atmosphere is going to be at its best when it's like that.
Oh, you mean the frozen tundra?
Yes, the frozen tundra. Exactly.
frozen tundra?
That's why they call it that, Rip.
Hey, so I think then on that case, obviously, as it was a huge win for the Packers, disappointing for the Saints because you would have been the 3-0. Vibes were high. Derek Carr, you're going to see the severity of what's happened. Jameis Winston, I thought, played admirably. We know what he's capable, but we kind of know what his ceiling is. Saints, they still feel like they're in a good position. Tough loss. I think then for time, Brad, you think it's cool we can just go around the league real quickly just to cover the rest, just like a quick hitter. So I know like the Pats go to the Jets and get the victory. Does that work?
Yes, the Jets have not beaten the Pats since 2015. Obama was in office back then. That's how long it's been since the Jets.
And has it really been that long? Wow, 15 years.
No, not 15 years, since 2015.
Oh,
I was
2015.
going to
Sorry.
say, I was like,
My bad,
I was like,
sorry.
8
are we
years.
that old now? He was in
Well,
office 15 years ago. Holy smokes.
I'm way all over the place. But yeah,
8
and
years.
I think it was an overtime win, if I'm not mistaken, by the
I
Jets.
believe so.
So long time for them, and Zach Wilson can just continues to not be able to figure out the Patriots. Been a really rough stretch for them.
He's
But for the
statistically the worst quarterback with over 500 plays. And the only other quarterback that was worse than him was Josh Rosen in that time period.
Well,
Wow.
that's
Josh Rosen was.
and that's a Brad hot stat right there for a minute.
Yeah.
That's a Brad hot stat. So the Pats lose that game, Pats win that game. Jets lose. Robert Saleh still sticking by his guy. It's been a really tough go for the Patriots. For the Jets since then, but the Patriots hasn't been great. But Patriots got to go to Dallas next week. The Jets are going to try to rebound as well. Around
Taking
the league,
taking Pats on that game.
I mean, hey, you might have to. I think another one that drew a lot of controversy towards the end: Chargers, Vikings, two teams that were battling out that had trouble and were struggling. Chargers found a way. Justin Herbert was sensational in the game.
Did you see that play call?
So
that's on fourth down by Brandon Staley.
So that
was a little. I mean, it was questionable, and it paid off for the Chargers in the end, but not because of that. That was just. I'll tell you this, guys. I hate the analytics aspect of sports. I do think it's great for the sport in a way, for baseball, for basketball, for football in a way. But 4th and 1 on the, what were they on the
24?
The 24.
Their own
with
24.
Exactly. With your back against the end zone. Why are you running the ball? Why are you running the ball? I'm sorry. Like, why are you not lining up? Or I mean, at least if you're going to go for it you got to at least line up like you're going to throw the ball and not run the ball there. But why not punt?
Because
of
Brandon
analytics.
Staley,
Because of analytics.
Well, yes, but Brandon Staley
Kills
has
me.
historically been really bad at play calling, and this just
was
another reflection of that. We talked about it last week. Lots of Charger fans just want Staley out of there. And honestly, I mean, that was the Vikings game to lose. And, unfortunately for Kirk Cousins, he threw an interception right in the end zone, the last play of the game. So the Chargers could have easily lost that game and gone 0-3, where Justin Herbert is playing absolutely out of his mind and hasn't thrown an interception. Just unbelievable playing from Justin Herbert, and just really bad play calling from the coaching staff.
First of all, it's quickly. I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but if you're going to run the ball at least, and I know Austin Eckler was hurt, but that's when you potentially run the ball. If Austin Eckler is healthy and out there in the backfield, if you're going to run it with someone, run it with Austin Eckler. Since he was hurt, since he was inactive, and you're going with Kelly, like, are you kidding me?
And,
like,
and unfortunately with Joshua,
unfortunately
with Joshua Kelly too, on his stats for the day, 11 carries, 12 yards.
Yeah, man, he couldn't move the ball all day. You're gonna give him 11 carries for 12 yards. You can't even fall forward for a yard. Like, what are we doing here?
And in that case, talking about your best player with the ball in his hands. And again, I understand it's devil's advocate if it goes different ways, but if Justin Herbert's your best player, let him be the decisive factor. He was 40 of 47 for 405 yards. He has carried this team.
Yeah.
Carried his team. So the fact that they snuck that one out, but again, that's a life-saving victory or a season-saving victory right now for the Chargers. But it was a very interesting game, and for the Vikings, it's another close game they lost all of last year. I think they were 11-1 in close games going into the postseason. So far this season, they've had 3 one-score games. They're 0-3 in each of them. So I don't know what to say with that. Going around the league real quickly, then to some other ones. Cleveland absolutely annihilated the Titans. Derrick Henry couldn't get everything going. This Cleveland defense we'll talk about on Thursday, very stingy. Yeah. We talked a little bit earlier, Buffalo manhandled the Commanders, was not even a contest. I think one of the surprising ones I want to talk about for a second, the Texans go into Jacksonville, the other game that no one's talking about. And I'll tell you what, CJ Stroud for me looks like the guy that could have been the number 1 overall pick, and sneaky. This Texans team could make a quicker turnaround than people can realize.
I was really surprised at the way that the Texans beat the Jags. Now, listen, I understand that it's a division game, and they're always tough games to play. But man, CJ, and we saw CJ Stroud. We saw flashes of him in Baltimore in Week 1. Ryan, you and I watched that game firsthand, and we both made mention during the game how we actually kind of liked what we saw from CJ. It is definitely interesting to watch, and I'm really excited to see where this goes as far as this Texans team's concerned. But yeah, a little bit of a surprise, even for me, even from what I saw from CJ Stroud, to see the Jaguars cough that game up.
Yeah, well, another thing, CJ Stroud was 280 for 2 touchdowns, 20 of 30, and I think Rock, you got the stats on.
Yeah, I got the stats. It's a big stat for CJ Stroud. In 3 games, here's a stat from the NFL. Stroud has posted 906 passing yards. That's the 3rd most by a rookie quarterback in their first 3 career games since 1970. 1 was Cam Newton with 1,012. 2 was Justin Herbert with 931. 3 is CJ Stroud, 3 games into the league as a rookie.
I mean, and look right now, we thought that was going to be the Jaguars division to lose. Well, guess what? Right now, you got the Colts that are leading that division at 2-1 currently, while the Texans, Jags, and Titans are all sitting at 1-2. That's crazy. It's the NFL. You never know what you're going to get. But CJ Stroud looks like the dude right now. If I was going to say who's going to win actual offensive rookie of the year, my bet's on CJ Stroud.
He's averaging over 9 yards a pass.
I think Bijan Robinson is incredible, but if Stroud continues at this pace, I think it's going to be him if they continue to play like they have, especially like they did last week.
I think it's going to be between those two and Zay Flowers.
Ooh, for sure. We'd love to see Zay. We're going to have to bring that in at the quarter point of the halfway mark to see exactly who our picks are going to be. Yep. But man, huge win for the Texans there. And going around, Seahawks beat the Panthers. Pittsburgh goes to Vegas. And you see in moments where Jimmy Garoppolo, where you go, man, I can see why they went and got him. And you can go, man, I can see why people still doubt him, because he will go and make a fantastic throw. And then whammy, he'll have so much time, try to do too much, and throw a bad pass interception. And that really was the difference in a game. Jimmy G, which hopefully he's okay. I think he's dealing with a concussion, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead.
Sorry. I think that I don't disagree with you, Ryan, but the play calling from Josh McDaniel was also atrocious. So towards the end of that game,
oh my goodness,
you kick a field goal, just go for the. What are you doing?
He's thinking about my fantasy team.
But in all seriousness, the play calling from Josh McDaniel is also atrocious. Like some of the play calls that I thought were just like no brainers, such as going for it and getting a touchdown at the end of the game. Just real big head scratcher for me. So I do understand your point from Jimmy Garoppolo. There's a lot to fix on the coaching side of things as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's so much we could dive into Pittsburgh, who's also 2-1. We'll get into that later next week because we're running longer. We should get out of here. A lot of things going on. But quickly before we get out of here, Eagles are beating the Bucs right now. Rams are playing the Bengals at 0-0 early in the first. I'll ask Rock since you're here real quick. Well, Brad, your first pick real quickly. Who you got tonight? You got the Rams or Bengals?
I got Rams. I just don't trust Joe Burrow right now in that injury.
Okay, Rock, what you got?
Put me on the spot.
It's simple. You pick one team.
I'm going to go with the Bengals. I don't see them starting the season 0-3. They very well could, but I think they're going to dig themselves out and find a way to win this football game for sure.
Well, we went into saying that they had no chance to win the division if right now that was our take last week. I'm going to still take the Bengals at home, but as a Ravens fan, you'd love to see the Rams come in and get a victory, especially with how well Matthew Stafford's been playing this season. Love to see him healthy. I think that's all we got, Brad. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Who you got for Eagles Bucks?
Eagles.
I have the Eagles as well.
Eagles as well, yeah. Even though I like secretly like to root for Baker Mayfield just because he's gotten the shaft ever since he's come into the league. I just want to see him do well, at least maybe for one season. But nevertheless, yeah, I think Eagles are going to take that one as well.
Yeah, right now off to a good start. 8 of 15, 77 yards, and an interception for Baker Mayfield. So, hey, I think that's all we got. Rock, thank you for audibling with us, and sorry for my technical difficulties. But we're going to be back on Thursday, Brad.
Yes.
We'll be back on Thursday to do this again. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, we'll cover our wins and losses, our record as far as picks are concerned on Thursday as well.
Yes, we will. And actually on TikTok, that got some very heated remarks because a lot of Colts fans didn't like that we thought that the Ravens would win a home game, but we'll digress. Yeah. Anyway, hey, we appreciate everyone. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. We do this every Monday and Thursday. We'll come bother Rocco to be with us more moving forward. We're going to break down things in the postseason with MLB and even really break it down more. So stay tuned for that. But that's all we got. Everyone, thank you, Brad, from wherever you are in the world right now. Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys on Thursday.
All right. See you guys.